Hello and welcome to the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam final played in Cape Town, South Africa. We have three stages in this event. We have round robin stage, we have quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. And the first day started with the round robin stage. We have 8 players, they're playing 7 rounds each and determine the placement. And then what happens is the first player who wins the round robin picks the player he wants to play against. He can pick from 5 to 8, and then second picks whatever's left, third picks whatever's left, and then fourth basically has no choice. So let's see how this round robin stage played out, and we'll start by taking a look at the game between Javokhir Sindarov and Magnus Carlsen. For those of you who are wondering what the hell is going on in this, what is this even talking about, like why his pieces are set up incorrectly, like Magnus, what is going on? So freestyle chess, for those of you who have no idea what it is, but most of you will know. So it's basically chess 960, but they rebranded it under freestyle chess. Players get random position each game, and then they try to basically analyze before each game very quickly, and then they go in and play the game. So a lot of blunders might happen, and guess what? The classical position that we have is actually one of the most equal positions in chess. If you take other, positions like this, it's usually the evaluation is slightly different, and sometimes you get a very imbalanced position right from the beginning. But let's take a look. So Javokhir plays against Magnus and starts with e4, of course, classical. And here something like c5 might actually be not the worst idea, because here white will generally and black will have some problems with this bishop potentially on b8 and on b1. So Magnus responds with e5 and now c3. Potentially, of course, d4 is being played, and Magnus immediately starts counterattacking. And I would advise you to pay attention to the evil bar, because it will change. I can't say it will change a lot in this game, because that was a relatively smooth game, but let's see how this played out. So e takes d5, queen b5 check. So it looked like Magnus sacrificed the pawn, but after queen b5 check, he attacks the king and he attacks the pawn. So now block the check, queen d5, and now knight f3 comes with the tempo. And to me, knight f3 now looks very, very good, just because queen already moved once, twice, and now it moves for the third time, which is not very good in the opening. You still gotta, even though it's freestyle chess, it's chess 960, you still gotta follow the principle, some of the principle, because let's say battle for the center, it's not always good, because let's say here the position might be so unbalanced that, let's say, white for the center, and then the next second you're getting checkmated. That might happen. So knight f3 attacking the pawn, and now c5, protecting from b8, and actually, you might actually miss it, because c5, it looks like, okay, what does he do? Let's say in classical chess, you would play f6 to protect it, but now after c5, you usually get used to knight on b8, and then not really protect, you will take, but now bishop is activated, and bishop e5 actually wins the game for black. So d4, immediately counterattacking. E takes d4, c takes d4, c takes d4, and now knight f5. So the idea is to take the pawn with knight, and also what is kind of being threatened is this and bishop a3. So after knight c6, b3, guess what happens? This king is not very safe, while this king can already go to g1. So knight e7, bishop a3, pinning the knight on this long diagonal, and bishop cannot go to d6 due to knight on f5. So it becomes very complicated to play as black. So Magnus goes queen d8, and now after knight d4, guess what happens? After knight d4, there is even bishop e7, and I think the position, you can just simply count it as lost. So instead, bishop f5, knight f5, we still keep the pin on this long diagonal, and after g6, takes, bishop e4, guess what happens? Javokhir attacks p7, the bishop is very active, potentially g3, king g2, and it's very, very easy to play with white pieces, while for black, it becomes extremely tough. So bishop d6, rook d1, and this bishop is, I mean, it cannot be saved. And that was Magnus's best chance, because the position is so lost right now. Because there is no choice. Bishop e5, I mean, it's probably rook d1, and still, I mean, you can probably resign as black. Bishop d6, rook d1, bishop a3, rook d8, rook d8, and now Javokhir converted pretty smoothly. We can quickly take a look at it. Queen c4, bishop d5 takes, rook e7, bishop f7. The idea right now is rook f7, queen e2, and you kind of deflect rook off e2. So Magnus lasted for a couple more moves. King g2, rook d1, rook d3 takes, rook e6, rook d3. Resignation was followed, and Javokhir started the event with the win. And by the way, we'll watch all the games in today's video played by Magnus Carlsen. I mean, I could pick up different games because there were a lot of interesting things happening. Let's say Parham Maghsoodloo scored 0. But let's go to the next game between Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann. That's what fans really like to see. I mean, it's just fun. Like Magnus and Hans, like two rivals. I mean, it's tough to call Hans a huge rival for Magnus, but still, you know, when they face each other, there's like usually some, you know, tension between them. So it's definitely interesting to see. So we have a different position from the last one. So let's say here we had king on f1, while here we have king on d1, bishop on h1, bishop on e1. So potentially what you would think of is somehow develop, let's say, this bishop here, activates the bishop with g5, knight goes to e6, maybe b5, knight b6, and I don't know, maybe castle short side. I mean, it's very complicated, especially the castling here. It works the same way. Let's say here white can castle on the first move, and black can do the same thing. But of course, this is not the best, and players know it. So c4, and guess what? Immediately there is a potential of blundering. Let's say knight e6, queen h7. So it's also very important to watch out for threats in chess 960, because you never know. Like, I played chess 960 from time to time, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I could blunder on move 5 because I forgot that on some diagonal, I mean, my pawn was just hanging. So c5, and now b4, actively starting the game. d6, b5, g6. So this bishop is already activated. d3, b6, g3, and they get a very, very close position. Takes, knight d7, a4, knight f6. Magnus took more space from Hans. Knight f3, bishop d7, castle, castle, knight b3, and that, okay, that doesn't look like a standard position, but you know, you would assume that white have some advantage just because the space is just there. a4, this is a very, very good pawn structure, and a5. And Magnus starts, you know, creating some center battles. Knight to6, d5, knight d4, queen b2, e5, takes, and now rook e1. King g7, rook d3 attacking the knight. Now pawn goes to e5, and actually this looks good for black. I mean, their knight on d4 is kinda, you know, firm. While, yeah, knight d5 potentially could be the idea, but you know, I really love black's position just because there are some ideas against f2 pawn, like you go knight g4, you maybe reroute your queen somehow and you try to attack. But Magnus, he doesn't care. Knight d4, knight d2, bishop e6, knight d5, takes. And now this is under attack. And I was thinking, what if you play, let's say, c4 here? c4 is not best due to rook c3, and you just simply pick up a pawn. Bishop g4 was played instead, f3, bishop h3, and now e3, and guess what? Knight should now go back. It goes back to f5, and now knight e4. I would be still a little bit scared of, let's say, some c4 ideas, but they just don't really work here. And guess what happens? g4 is the idea, queen f2, king g3, bishop is trapped. So, knight h6, g4, Hans decided to sacrifice, but it wasn't enough. Rook f2, rook f1, bishop g2, queen f2, king g3, and Magnus actually delivered some, you know, fun conversion. h5, king h2, rook f6, and bishop e4. Brilliant sacrifice. Now the idea is that after bishop e4, rook f6, Hans has to resign. King f6 walks into queen g5, and we use the weakness of e4 bishop, king f7, takes, knight e4. If queen f6, simply knight e4, pawn on d6 falls, queen comes to e5, knight g5, knight e6. everything's under attack. Magnus ended up winning this chess game. And another game played by Magnus Carlsen. Bishop on e1, bishop on f1, knight on g1, knight on d1, queen on h1, rook on b1, rook on e1, king on c1. Again, a lot of nonsense happening in this chess 960 positions. And once again, before Arjun plays against Magnus. e5, g4. I mean, what is happening? f6, bishop g2, h5, g takes h5, queen h5. If you this position, actually, if you look at the evil bar, zeros at all times. Knight e7, knight e2, knight f5. Players developed, players traded some pieces of the board. b5, bishop a3, bishop b2. And the more trades happen in freestyle chess, probably the easier it is to play, because you kind of understand, you kind of have more space for your pieces. It's easier to figure out, and I think for these players it kind of makes a lot of sense to, let's say for me against them, it probably would make sense to do it, while for them against me, they would try to keep as many pieces on the board as possible, just to make sure they can cheat me. And sometimes it's a good thing to keep a lot of pieces on the board, but those players didn't. And right away, yes, knight e7 is a slight mistake according to computer, but I mean, it's still nothing critical. c4, rook h8, and Magnus started creating threats. d3, and guess what the idea is? Queen h2, skittish, and then basically what happens is this takes rook h1, up a rook. So c6, that was noticed. Now knight c3, and now actually black could take. There is still some bishop c6 though, which is a smart idea. You can play rook h1 and then, let's say, takes, and white probably have a better pawn structure just because, and active position just because rook h2, rook h7, and something fun about to happen. So b6 was played, bishop f3, finally protecting the pawn, and now rook d2, f5. And after some moves, finally some mistakes started happening. So g4 was played. Now f4, e takes f4, g takes f4, queen f2, and c5. c5 was a huge mistake just because there are a lot of weaknesses now on light squares. So the best way for black to keep somewhat equal position was to play knight g6, but it still would have been complicated, as here's some g5. The idea is to play, assume some knight e4 in the future, and then try to push h4, h5. So what happens instead? c5 takes, h4, and suddenly there are a lot of things to attack for white. So queen g2, this pawn was under attack, rook d8, h5, knight f8, and now rook g5. Not the most precise move. Knight e4 is apparently a lot stronger. Oh, wait, this, and no way this. Oh, look at this though. So the idea is that, let's say this, queen a6, king b8, and b6. Oh my, that's tough to find though. And after takes, king c8 no longer possible, king a8, you just take. Yeah, as this is that, rook g5, pawn to f3, knight goes to e4, king g2, now takes. And I was watching the YouTube broadcast at this moment, and yeah, rook f5, rook comes to f2, and Magnus had to resign. So that was the conclusion of round robin stage. So something interesting to watch out tomorrow. We have quarterfinals. Javokhir plays against Parham Maksutlu, who lost all games. Then we have Levon Aronian, who came second, plays against Hans Niemann. Then we have Arjun Erigaisi playing against Vincent Keimer, who won the Weissenhaus event. And then we have Magnus Carlsen, who came fourth place, but he's still the favorite to win the event. He came fourth, and he's going to play Fabiano Caruana. And I mean, yeah, many people would actually prefer to watch classical chess being played in the same format probably, but it is what it is. We have freestyle chess. Yes, for most of you, it is hard to understand what is really going on this chessboard, but you know, it's still fun. It's still fun to see these types of events and top players play against each other, especially it's basically like 8 top players. So that's it for today. I'll see you after the quarterfinals tomorrow. The event only lasts like 4. We have today. We have quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, and that's it. So only 4 days of the event. Once again, hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like the video if you liked watching me analyzing this games, and I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao ciao.